My goal with Ginger Runner has always been to inspire, educate, and encourage you to challenge yourself through race movies, gear reviews, documentaries, and live shows. Well, now we're adding something new. On November 19th, I'm hosting my very first virtual run, a run that anybody can register for, no matter your ability, with awesome swag and prizes. Patagonia t-shirts, wood bottle openers, iron-on custom patches, and more. GRVR is a 2-hour activity that you will complete on November 19th. There will be awards for most distance travel, most elevation gain, biggest GRVR crew, most donut shops visited, and more. Yeah! There are 3 registration options: men's t-shirt, women's singlet, and a digital-only option, which doesn't include the rad swag, but still makes you eligible for the awards. So join me for the big event. I'm super excited to bring our kick-ass global community together on November 19th. For more specific information, visit the link in the description and register now for the Ginger Runner Virtual Run. Registration closes on September 5th.
Yay!
Got her to do it. Finally, Kim says yay, because it's always me. Happy Monday, everybody. Yay! Very excited. Mondays, again, our favorite night of the week. Welcome, family, for joining us tonight. It's very exciting. Episode number 132 of Ginger Runner Live. Very special episode tonight, because we've never had this guest on, and it has been far too long. A fantastic runner, road and now trail ultra runner, and had a recent incredible day at UTMB with the third place finish. And I can't wait to hear all about it. Our guest tonight is Tim Tollefson. Before we even get to the show, as you saw a little intro video, the GRVR 16, the Ginger Runner Virtual Run, tonight is the last night to actually register for the t-shirt options of this race, which I'm really excited for. It's something that I've had the idea for years, but never knew really how to put it together. And I was like, you know what? I want to do a race that gets everybody outside, which is exactly what it is. On November 19th, anybody and everybody from around the world can participate in the Ginger Runner Virtual Run virtually, and you can submit your results, and we will give prizes and awards, and there's lots of great stuff that you will get on the back end. So look into it. You can go to gingerrunnerstore.com for more information and stuff like that. But tonight,
registration closes.
Registration for the t-shirt option closes tonight. There is a digital download option, which gets you entered into all the contests, but you don't get any of the cool swag, and that'll be open up until race day. So yeah, grab your beverages, whether adult or non-adult or adults, and let's have some fun tonight. Really excited to have this guest on the show. It's gonna be a good one. Here we go. Ginger Runner. Yay! I'm the only one saying yay. That's called revenge. And it's called Couples Revenge. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 132. Tonight's episode, like I said in the intro, long overdue. Our tonight's guest is an incredibly talented runner, currently residing in Mammoth Lakes, California. He has an incredible road background, transitioned into trails, and over the last couple of years has just blown up the trail running scene with victories and all sorts of amazing stats and stuff like that. Most recently in France, and I believe the race runs through other countries. I am just setting this up gloriously. Giant volleyball.
Did a great job.
Thank you. He got third place at UTMB, which is, incredible. And I can't wait to talk to him all about it. Our guest tonight is Mr. Tim Tollefson. Yay!
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for finally being on the show. I have asked you to be on the show 120 times, and you finally said yes.
I know. My PR person just didn't think it was a good time, so he was waiting for the 132nd episode.
He's like, don't do it too early, Tim. You gotta wait. You gotta wait a couple years and then do it. Man,
have you really had 132?
132 episode. 131 were very subpar in comparison to this.
Yeah, true.
This one.
This will top it.
I'm honestly very apologetic. I'm very sorry for not having you on sooner. You are a really amazing person that I'm excited to talk to finally for the first time, because I feel like your story is unique in the sense that you have a really strong road running background, an incredible road running resume. You live and breathe running, and now transitioning into trails, you're just making a splash. You're doing some pretty amazing things. first question, I guess, would be what drew you to trails? Like, what was that transition like for you? At what point did you go, I'm done with the roads. Let's move on to the dirt path?
That really came kind of in the summer of 2014. So it was just 2 years ago. I'm wrapping up my second year of ultra running, and it was after about 6 months to a year of kind of frustration on the roads. I was chasing the Olympic Trials marathon standard, which at the time was 2:18 flat, 2:18 or 2 hours and 18 minutes. And I came up short with a 2:18.29. Then I ran a 2:19. So a couple what I viewed as kind of like these subpar performances, because this trivial time standard was out there that I came up short of. It was frustrating, and I was kind of just getting really run down, like mentally and physically, on like, why am I chasing this, and like it's not happening, and I needed sort of to kind of just change things up and kind of reignite my passion for running. And at the same time, I was watching some friends like Chris Vargo and Alex Varner having fun on the trail and getting out and exploring different areas of the country. And I was a little envious of that. And it just seemed like a nice breaking point to take a step back from the road marathons and hop into the trails. So, and then at the same time, I was able to embrace our natural surrounding in Mammoth Lakes, where for basically years we had been avoiding particular trails, knowing that it wasn't going to help us run fast marathons. So now we were actually venturing out, summiting peaks, hitting these, backcountry areas that were kind of off limits to us as roadies.
And you say we, who is the we in this equation?
The we in this equation is my wife, Lindsay, who still drags her feet. She thinks she's a terrible trail runner.
Oh, really?
And yeah, she's still a road whore through and through. But she's done pretty well for herself, despite dragging her feet and not feeling very accomplished on the trail. So it was her and I have kind of taken that venture on.
I want to talk a bit about your location. That's something that we talked to some of our guests about. Also, by the way, I was looking at the screen going, man, I'm so blown out. I know that I'm already really pale just being a ginger. I realized I had a light on. I was a little innovative.
I didn't know what you were.
I just took the hiking pole and just turned off the light from where we're sitting. Completely side note. But I want to talk about Mammoth Lakes. Kim and I have never been there. Seeing all your pictures, your Instagram is amazing to follow. Tonight, I am partaking in a little of Mammoth Lakes, enjoying a double nut brown, and I wanted to pour it into a glass, which I don't normally do on the show, but I felt this deserved. It looks like a hearty meal. That's what you were saying, right? Yeah,
it is. It is a hearty meal, and it deserves to be served in the glass. So yeah. that hands down is my favorite at Mammoth Brewing Company. And if we didn't come back to an empty home, there's a chance that I may have gone out and picked up one of those. But yeah,
it's okay. I will enjoy this in this giant 22 fluid ounce bottle
for all of
us today.
We did have some Diet Hansons that I'll choose.
Classic. Well, Kim will be enjoying La Croche tonight.
La Croche.
It's French. It's great. So let's talk about Mammoth Lakes. What is it about this city that you've lived in now for a while that makes it so unique? And tell me a little bit about what makes it special.
Yeah, I guess it's a true small town. There are only about 7,000 permanent residents that reside here, and that's something that I'm really drawn towards. I grew up in a smaller town in Minnesota before my family migrated to California, where I went to middle school and high school in the Sacramento area. But so I've just always appreciated and enjoyed small communities, and Mammoth is one of those. Although we have a huge influx of tourists, we're a tourist-based economy. Essentially, all of Southern California and LA and San Diego and Orange County, they vacation to Mammoth. So a lot of the listeners probably in the Southern California area have been up here at some point. But I don't know. I think it's a spectacular place where we're nestled right in the mountain, basically. Like our town level is about 7,800 feet, and then Mammoth Mountain tops out at 11,053 feet. So you have this, 3,000 foot relief just from town 3 miles up. So like from our house, I have a VK that I can run from here straight up to the top of the mountain, which is pretty neat, just from our doorsteps.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and then also my real life, I work at the hospital as a therapist, a physical therapist, and what I like is that I get to know my patients and they get to know me, and then I see them at Vaughn's, our only grocery store. I'll see them in the post office, and kind of build these relationships outside of the clinic, which is important to me, where you just feel connected. You're not lost in the mix of, a big city. So it's, and then you walk outside and you just are dominated by these mountainous, peaks like overshadowing the town, which is kind of it's an awesome thing to look at every day.
Yeah, it just seems so unique in the sense that it's 30 minutes from Yosemite. You have the Eastern Sierra. You're in the Eastern Sierra. It just seems to be a perfect little mountain town, especially for training.
I was going to say, it all sounds so good. How have we not been there?
I know.
Yeah, Tim and I talked before the show.
Where are you guys?
Hell. No, Los
LA?
Angeles. Yeah,
Yeah.
LA. Yeah, Los Angeles. I was going to say born and raised. Not true.
No.
I've been
No.
here for 9 years, and you've only been here for a year and a half.
half.
But we are looking for great destinations to check out, and obviously Mammoth Lakes is on that list. So Tim, we're gonna
395 north.
crash. We're taking 395 north. We're gonna crash in your master bedroom. So,
You can.
yeah.
Lindsay said it's okay.
Okay, great.
Great.
Yeah,
Nice.
we have it right here. This is where the magic happens.
I just want to remind everyone who's watching live that we have Tim Tollefson on the show tonight. If you have any questions for him during the course of the episode, of course.
I am in the chat room as always. And there's already been some comments of, you got to follow Tim on Strava. It's so impressive. So
Yeah, anytime we
fans
have
in there.
Tim, you have a lot of fans. We actually have people from all over the world: Chile, New Zealand, Minnesota. All over the world. So we do have great people that want to know more about how they can follow you and all that kind of stuff. Strava, Instagram. I know that. If you follow him on Strava, just warning you, you will feel inadequate. You will feel weak. You will feel like you will feel slow, fat, like a ginger, all sorts of problems. But he is very impressive to follow this guy on Strava. Do it.
No, thank you though.
Let's talk about the big race. You were in France last year for CCC. How was that experience? We'll talk, I guess, briefly about that, because you came back, whether it was for revenge or anything, you came back. What was CCC like last year for you? And did that plant a seed?
Yeah, CCC was amazing. And the only reason I came back was because I wanted to place higher. And so I failed. I got third place instead of second place. But
Which is, ridiculous.
I might as well just go home. CCC was amazing. That was my first 100K. And so it was, only a little further than a 50 mile, if you did run the distance of it. But however, CCC offers 20,000 or 22,000 feet of elevation gain. So, that race took me 12 hours to finish, where, hopefully, 100K, something flatter wouldn't take me nearly that long. But just experiencing that series of events, the UTMB races, there are 5 throughout the week, was pretty incredible. It's unlike any other set of ultras in the world. There are things I appreciate about all different races, small and large, but this one, on the large scale, offers something very unique. And it's kind of like being at the Super Bowl of running for ultra running. Like, there are just thousands of fans out there, like literally cheering people on throughout 46 hours. Well, the UTMB has a 46-hour cutoff, but there are people out there for 2 straight days just cheering people on and supporting the runners. So CCC planted the seed. I knew I had to come back, and initially the thought of just doing the full loop around the mountain, 170 kilometers, start and finish in the same spot, that kind of I don't know, called to me. But then as soon as I kind of really committed to it, I thought, do I really want to do a 100-miler yet? I'm only 2 years into ultra running, so there was some reservations there. But I think just the main draw to be out in the mountains for that long really sold me on it. So, but
did you go into UTMB with additional confidence, knowing that you had already collected 100 kilometers of beta, essentially, that you knew the course, you had seen it and touched it? Did that give you any sense of confidence going into UTMB this year?
Definitely. And I think that was a good way of doing it. Zach and I, did the same thing, where we tried it out 100 kilometers with, we saw basically the final 90 to 100 kilometers of UTMB. And then we also kind of experienced the craziness that comes with a giant ultra like that. So you kind of figure out how to navigate, everything from the expo and just downtown Chamonix to, like what kind of gear is required, because gear at UTMB is unlike anything else. They require you to carry a lot of stuff in your bag. And so knowing how to pack my bag and what I needed, I wasn't fumbling around 24 hours before the race like last year thinking like, crap, my pants don't fit in this bag. Like, what else can where can I get some other pants? And so I think that reducing some of that stress was huge from just having this trial run of 100 kilometers on the same course. So it was definitely a benefit.
We got some great questions coming in from the live chat room. If you're watching live, continue to bring them in. Kim's collecting them. Here's one.
Question from Halim. How much more difficult was UTMB versus CCC besides the distance?
Ooh, so it's tough because, to me, it's almost comparing apples and oranges. Like CCC was challenging for me in a lot of different ways. I dealt with pretty severe dehydration in that race, something I've never had before. Midway through at Champs-Élysées, I actually was cramping up everywhere. Like my quads, my calves, my hamstrings were cramping to the point where I actually seized up and fell over in a bush, and then like stood up and I was peeing blood. And that was scary for me. Like I've never experienced this kind of stuff. And so just like mentally getting through that was a huge barrier. And I guess kind of just success that I pulled from that race was, learning that you can get through these extreme low points in an ultra and still make it to the end, where even though I was moving slowly, apparently everyone else was moving slower than I was, and coming from the roads, that's hard to wrap your head around. If you walk in an ultra or if you walk in a road marathon, you're done. Like there's no at the level like we're trying to chase times at. Like
at the front of the pack.
Yeah.
Because some of us have walked in a marathon before.
I should rephrase that. Yeah, and depending on what your individual goals are. But for me personally, if I'm walking in a marathon, like I'm not working towards my ultimate goal. So like to switch that mindset in ultra running is a hard thing to kind of get around. But then the difficulty of UTMB, being out there for that long with that much climbing, I've never climbed that much in a single day. 32 or 33,000 feet is, that's definitely not a lot of climbing. And that was, and holding myself back for as long as I did, I'd say that was the hardest thing at UTMB. Besides, or I guess before the final 50K, which was just an ass kicker. Like that was the hardest thing. The final 50K was really hard. So they were different. They were hard in different ways.
It's funny because your teammates, your Nike Trail teammates, David Laney, Zach Miller, Sally McRae, they've been there as well. They know this terrain. They know this course. You coming back, did you have a conversation with David or Zach about strategy? Were you guys working together at all, or was it have a good day, bros, we'll see you at the finish, that sort of thing?
There was no official strategizing, but I think Laney and I were both in the same boat. It's like Miller's going to go out. He's either going to have a successful day or he's going to blow up. And if he blows up, hopefully we reel in the carnage. But I basically took a page out of the David Laney playbook. If you looked at my race this year and compared it to his race last year, I essentially replicated what he did. And he's a guy that I really respect. He's had greater success on the roads than I have. He's really accomplished, and he's a smart, methodical racer. So I thought, this is a guy I can look up to and pull some advice from. So I did ask him a lot, and I picked his brain. He came to Mammoth for a training week back in April, and we summited a couple of local peaks, and so it was fun just spending time with him and getting his impression of like how he prepared, what he thought about the race itself, execution, and so I'd say he was, the biggest influence on me trying to keep a level head going into this, because like although Euro races start fast, like you always hear that Euro races start fast, like they're from the gun, they're going. Like for guys like David and I, that's a comfortable pace. Our marathon PRs allow us to run pretty fast at a comfortable level, longer than probably a lot of European racers. But trying to hold yourself back and not do that was really hard, initially. And I think that was something where thinking back to how he executed gave me confidence that this can still happen. Because when basically the race runs away from you in the first couple hours, it's hard to think, okay, I'll see you in 18 more hours. That's a long time to really kind of have faith that your strategy is going to pull through. But
I remember we had David on the show after last year's UTMB talking about his strategy, and it was just that. It was just, he wanted to take the first 60 miles. This is crazy to think about, but you take the first 60 miles easy so you can bust the last 40. I think it was more or less 50K. last like 32 miles or something. He said he just wanted to crush. And I remember talking to him about that and just going, you saved yourself for 70 miles just to crush the last 30? Like, that's crazy. So that amount of patience, did you have to train yourself to be patient, or was it on the day recent at UTMB? Did you just go, settle back, Tim, things will happen? Like, did you get frustrated at all too? That's another thing I was curious about.
I definitely didn't practice it because historically I'm notorious for going out too hard in workouts and blowing up, you know, kind of like most people. You know, and Lindsay always reminds me, like, you know, don't be dumb. You know, you need to just kind of build into this. And I didn't practice it in practice, you know. But on race day, I think it finally just kind of came to the culmination of, you've been working diligently for this one goal for the last 6 months, basically. Don't screw it up. Like, don't waste this opportunity. And I think it took a lot to check my ego those early couple miles or early couple hours, maybe even the first 10 to 12 hours, where even the eventual women's winner was in front of me the first couple miles, and seeing her run by me and just kind of try and check that ego and say, hey, don't worry about it. Like, she'll come back. The rest of the field will come back. It's okay to even hike early on some of these gentle climbs that I would probably crush in a training run. But that's not the goal. I don't want to run a good 160-kilometer race. I want to run a good 170K. It's kind of like the tour. You want to cross the line first. You don't want to be that bait that the peloton grabs at the end. And I just thought I need to, give myself the best opportunity to do well at the end. And kind of like David is like, run the first 100 kilometers or so, 60 miles, quote unquote, easy, take it, try and conserve energy, and then just crush the final 50K. And that was kind of my game plan.
Which is, it's crazy. This is also your first 100 too, right?
It was, yeah, first 100 miler.
Wow.
That's also an admirable fact we should make sure to mention, is this is Tim's first attempt at 100, well, it's 100 plus miles, because I think it's 105. It comes out to more than 100 miles. And to be able to be that patient for the 100-kilometer distance, and then be able to just crush the last bit. There's a good comment here in the chat room I want to read, and I know we have lots of questions. We're going to get to that too. But this one came from Jeff, talking about how Zach Miller did the opposite of your strategy, which is just go balls out. Having Zach on the show multiple times, we've heard from him that that's how he races, and it's insane. It's amazing to follow. And following him at UTMB this year was like, oh my God, he's off to the races. Like, he was in first place for so much of that race, but things just didn't. I think he bonked hard. I mean, Tim, you can probably talk to that because you probably talked to him right after the race, but I heard he bonked at one point. He still finished 6th.
He did, yep.
Which is nuts. Insane. Let's get to some of these questions. I don't want to pass over the questions.
Sure. So there's a question from Raul. You've already kind of answered his first part of the question, which was, what was your running strategy going into the race? Second part of the question was, how much did you have to adjust your strategy?
So I definitely, I didn't adjust it too much on the fly, I don't think. There were times where I adjusted my nutritional strategy more than my like race strategies in terms of pacing. I think the pacing kind of sorted itself out. Like, I wasn't even concerned about paces throughout the night, because you start at 6 p.m. So 3 hours later, the sun goes down and you have a full night that you're running through via headlamp. And I just wasn't concerned about splits. Like, I wasn't really looking at my watch much. It was more of when I might see my crew next. So I was focusing more on that. And but my nutritional strategy had to change some. Like, it not as much as some other races, but I was realizing that some of these solid foods that I was eating wasn't going down as well. So let's focus more on liquid calories. So adjusting that on the fly, I think, was probably the biggest change.
We'll do another question from the live chat.
Sure. Question from Chris in the chat room. What was the biggest unexpected thing that you encountered during the race or in the process of racing overseas?
Probably the 7,000-pound bovine that was in the middle of the trail when I was going through Italy in the middle of the night. He scared the crap out of me. I just look up with my headlamp and there's these glowing red eyes with like giant horns sticking out, and he's laying in the middle of the trail, this tiny single track trail. So I had to like meander around him in the bushes. But what was the
It's protein, bro. It's protein.
Yeah, I grabbed my pocket knife and I, cut often.
I don't know what happened. We saw Tim just eating
Like
raw meat
whittling off a wedge.
whittling off a wedge.
Yeah.
Gross.
And
It's a
what
way to
was
make
the
a splash.
question?
Yeah, what was the question? I like just talking about Tim like coming across a random cow and just chopping it up. But what was the question?
Unexpected things.
Oh, yeah,
with
unexpected
racing overseas.
Yeah, yeah.
I think and it wasn't unexpected because I've taken a couple trips in the last year now, but something that I find hard is when you're overseas, and especially when you're in good company of friends or, other family, people want to enjoy what these countries offer. And typically, you want to partake in some amazing just kind of cuisine, and trying to hold myself to somewhat of, a regular diet. I don't have a strict diet. Like, I don't cut out anything, but just quantities of new foods is a hard thing sometimes, and anyone that's been to France, the amount of cheese and meat you eat is just incredible. Like, every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is cheese and meat with something else. And, that's more than I normally consume in the States. So I think that's something that's hard to, and I'm still trying to work through, how do you navigate this, amazing world of, foreign cuisine without, sabotaging yourself come race days, so you're not, 30 pounds overweight. But
You just eat chocolate. I think it's just.
I was going to say we would totally sabotage anything.
Oh, we would not do well.
Yeah.
Kim, there's more cheese. Should we eat it all? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always yes. There's a great comment in here. I'm really curious about this. We might be jumping the gun as far as I kind of want to hear Tim's layout of how the story went at UTB and how the day went for him. But this is from Blake. Did you talk much to Zach as you passed him for the final podium spot?
That's been a hot topic.
Hot topic. Did you have a conversation with Zach as you passed him? What was that like?
I did. As I went up the final climb, Col de Monte, I was being hunted by Laney. So I turned around and he was hot on my heels. And at the same time, I'm looking up and I finally saw his white cap for the first time in 20 hours, basically. I hadn't seen him from the start, and people had been giving me updates that Zach looks pretty terrible. He's coming back to you. You're going to catch him. And so I'm in this kind of weird kind of middle ground where I'm between two teammates, and we're all fighting for probably that third place position. And we're all friends, but at the same time it's a race. And so when I finally made contact with Zach, he was kind of staggering a little bit, and I said, do you need anything? Do you need a gel? Do you need some water? He said, no, I'm fine. And I think he said my legs are toast or my legs are gas. I just don't have anything. I bonked hard. And I was okay. And then I asked him, is it okay if I go on for second place? And I think he looked up and he's like, of course, this is a race, you idiot, go after him, but it was kind of just heartbreaking to see him not execute the race exactly how he planned, and then I was going to be kicking him off the podium, if I could hold on, but it was looking that way. And so it was kind of a little bit of an awkward position, to have a friend struggling, and then you forge ahead without him. So
yeah, I mean, I can imagine, because you guys are friends. You guys know each other. You're teammates. You're also both from the same country, and in an international race, I can imagine there's this we're working together to do this thing. We travel maybe separately, but we're in town together. I can imagine there's that camaraderie. So I imagine there's a bit of internal dialogue with yourself of do I give him 20 minutes to try to regroup, or I mean, did you give him any time or anything like that? Or did that cross your mind at all? Or was it just now that I can focus, I'm going?
Yeah, it was more I'm just going to push on. I'm going to see if I can get in place. But in typical Zach Miller fashion, he latched on, and even though he was gassed and bonked, for another minute or so, he was right on my heels. And I'm thinking are you serious? You just told me you were gassed. Are you kind of pulling this boxing move? You're pretending to be down, and then you're just going to come back and clock me. But he only made it maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then he broke. But you are right. In Chamonix in particular, when Zach and I, or Laney and I go for a easy run through the square or walk, people are they will cheer oh, Team Nike, USA, and so there's this collective there's something neat about that. People, they want to see us do well over there. Obviously, I think they'd rather see a Frenchman or a French woman on the top of the podium, but they're excited to see Americans, starting to do well, at UTMB. So it's kind of a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's. I also think it was really unique this year. They recognized the women's podium, I believe, for the first time. I think that's some of the news that I heard. And I believe the chat room is talking about how deep the podium goes, and I believe it is 10 people. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is.
So.
10 people.
And last year it was only 5 women, and this year they extended it to 10 women.
10 women. That's what it was. Keep the questions coming, live audience. There's tons of good ones. I want to start talking about just kind of how the race unfolded for you, Tim. Early on in this race, did you feel like you were dialed in? Were you trying to just stick to a certain plan? Did the first 30 to 40 miles go according to plan? Was there anything that happened out of the ordinary for you?
The first probably 5 or 10 miles went according to plan. Like I just thought you're going to let the shenanigans in front of you unfold and just kind of run your own race. Yeah.
Good use of shenanigans.
I thought you meant unfold.
Yeah, good word. Unfold. Good use of unfold.
And it did. Like people, they do their stuff, and I just kind of stayed within myself and enjoyed, the early crowds, because the early crowds are pretty incredible. There were probably thousands of people lining the streets the first mile or two, and then you get into the first main town, Les Ouches, and like I was feeling pretty good, and you start the first initial climb, and there were people passing me on the climb, and there was part of me that had to kind of really then check the ego, like don't get drawn out by them. Like, yes, you can run this climb, but you should hike it right now. You should save some energy. So I was power hiking early, and but I'd say I went through the daytime, the first 3 hours pretty well, according to plan. But once night fell, I found myself kind of in this like leapfrog kind of game with David or Laney, and we were kind of going back and forth, and you enter some pretty serious climbs through the night, and I hit some low points where I wasn't feeling fantastic, and it started like the thought of 80 more miles or 70 more miles was growing kind of more ever daunting on me. Like, can I actually do this? And I just had to kind of expunge those and think, no, like you're going to see your crew in 4 more hours, like focus on that. Just see your crew. Who cares what happens after that? And so it was nice having David with me throughout the night. And we went up over the Col de la Zane, which is a pretty big climb, proper technical backcountry climb. Like you go up, a talus scree field, and there you cross the glacier, or part of the glacier there. And we didn't say a lot to one another, but just having him there, I think was comforting, knowing that this is, one of my friends, he's a teammate, and we're going to get through the night together. I think that helped get through those low points.
So kind of talking about early on in the race, there's a good question here in the chat room just talking about the crowds and beating the crowds. As far as your experience at UTMB and also CCC last year, did you have any huge crowds that you had to deal with? I'm really curious because there are so many people that run this race. Is there a strategy involved, especially for a front of the pack elite runner like yourself who's gunning for a podium position? Do you have to run a certain pace to keep in front of a certain horde of people? How does that transition into single track? I mean, are you getting lost behind people who shouldn't be in front of you? That sort of thing. Like, how does that work for those first 30, 40 miles?
So for CCC, I'll start with that one. You start in Courmayeur, Italy, and you kind of do a loop through town, and then you hit this just kind of paved road. And I'd say you don't hit single track until maybe 2 miles is what I can recall. So you have about 2 miles to let all those shenanigans unfold. Love it. So and that at CCC, Zach and I found ourselves in the top 5 by that 2 mile mark. So we didn't really have to do much. We probably the first mile we were back in 20th or 30th place, but even the second mile, once you started climbing a little bit, people started coming back quick. So luckily we didn't have to navigate that. And at UTMB, I got out a little quick. By most people's standards, I think my first mile was 6:20, leaving Chamonix, and but then you were basically on a pretty wide trail, more of a gravel road almost, for the first 5 miles. So there's plenty of time for this one to kind of unroute, or for things to kind of sort themselves out. I think for the middle of the packers or the back of the packers, they may have to be a little more cognizant of that. If you have 2,400 people in a race, which I think UTMB is, before you get to those single track trails, you may have to kind of jockey for position a little bit.
Yeah, Chuck Hall in the chat room is saying 2,500 runners at UTMB. That's crazy, and it is.
It's like unheard of.
It's
for
unheard
races
of for
over here, anyways.
And I believe that I actually read this recently as well, that the DNF or the drop percentage is extremely high, because there are a lot of people that just don't end up finishing the race. But out of thousands of people running, there are going to be a lot of drops.
Sure.
I'm curious about kind of this middle mileage section, miles anywhere from 50 to 70, 80-ish, when things probably begin to shift for you. You're riding the line between 12th, 13th, 14th place, following you and Laney. Kim and I were literally on our phones just like, what are they? Oh, they're gonna make a break for it. Was there a moment that you, whether you were running with Laney or not, or maybe you were solo and inside your own mind, was there a moment that you just said, this is the time, press the button and go?
Yeah, kind of like Laney and I separated at right around Lac Combal, which is before Courmayeur, which is the big aid station where you see your crew for the second time, about mile 45 or 50, somewhere in there. So it was probably like 7 or 8 miles before that. He and I broke away. Like, I'd stopped to fill up my bottle at this just natural fountain, and then I relieved myself, and then not in the fountain, but and then Laney like kind of jogged ahead, and then I caught up with him, and he stopped and he went to the bathroom. And then as we were descending, I was descending a little quicker than he was, and it was nice having his company throughout the night, like I said. But on the descents, I kind of wanted to go faster, so this was sort of a natural breaking point where I kind of gapped him a little bit, and it wasn't intentional, like, oh, I'm going to leave him behind, but we were just kind of running different paces at that point. And I think at that point I started running a little quicker, but it wasn't until I got into Courmayeur, and I was like, actually before that, like, I was feeling strong, like up and over. I saw that cattle that was laying in the middle of the trail that I, got some knifed. Protein from, and then shanked him. And then I was going down, this big descent into Courmayeur, which is one of probably the most challenging descents. And it happens at maybe mile 45, I want to say, like, roughly. And one of those miles, you drop probably 1,400 feet in a mile. And it's technical. Like, it's not just, a smooth dirt path. And so you're not even halfway through the race, and you're just hammering your quads really hard here. And I'm coming down this section, and I had previewed this the week before with some friends when we were in Italy, which was nice. So I kind of knew what to expect. But at the same time, like I knew how hairy it was. Like, it wasn't going to be easy. And I'm going down, being kind of conscious of where I'm placing my feet. And I catch my toe on a rock. And it's one of those, like, you're going down something really steep, and you catch your toe. So immediately you start to fall forward. And then trying to keep myself upright, you sprint. So I'm sprinting down this, 30% grade, and like trying to stay on my feet. And at the same time, I'm trying to then, once I get my composure, slow down. And so I'm just slamming my feet like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And I was actually like yelling that out loud. Like, I'm just all by myself out, in the middle of the night, but I'm slamming, and my feet are just jamming into the ends of my shoes. And I finally come to a complete stop, and I just kind of stood there for a second, like, okay, pull it together, like, lock it up, Tim. Like, you need to get down this in one piece, and then tackle the next climb. But it's constantly like a bunch of those, like, you feel like you're in a rhythm, but then something little like that pulls you out of it, and you realize how vulnerable you are out there. Like, so much can go wrong, more than things can go right.
Yeah, we had Sage on after last year's UTMB, and it was a very similar descent where he just was lost focus for a second. I think he was talked about looking at a headlight or something like that, and he tripped and he fell, and his race was out the window. He had to get airlifted out of the race. Yeah, and we've heard multiple stories like this where the terrain is so technical and rocky and sharp that if one thing goes wrong, a lot of things go wrong. A lot of blood gets drawn, or cows get shanked. Just bad things go wrong. And
another pro tip: don't look at your watch for a split as you're going down something like that. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
I have fallen because I'm like, oh, what was that milestone? It's just not worth it.
Ow. We got great questions coming in from the live chat. So yeah, we can turn it over to Kim.
Sure. Question in the chat room from Brian. Tim, were there any issues with breaking down language barriers during the race? Is that aid stations, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
You know, personally, I didn't experience anything. I've heard some people that had issues, but you know, we're spoiled as English speakers when you go over to some of these countries because you know more and more people are speaking English in most of these these towns, and so I think they really make it easy for us. There are some things like I was sure to learn how to say just like hello and thank you in English. English. So I learned how to say that in English. But
Congratulations.
In French,
English.
31 years, and I finally did it. But in French and Italian, just so that I could at least communicate a little gratitude towards the people that are helping out. And one thing I find strange is when I can't find the foreign word that I want, my brain goes to Spanish because it's the only language I actually kind of know.
That's what I would be doing. Yep, I'm with you.
I know that they're not going to understand any Spanish, but I can't speak any of I can't speak Italian, so I can't speak.
They're
French
all close though, Tim. They're all close. It's all the Romance languages. They're all pretty close.
Lindsay would say I'm not a very romantic guy though, so I think there's going to be a lot of carry through there.
It'd be like, I know you're speaking Spanish, but it is not romantic. Please leave our country. Bye-bye. And that's how they'd say it. That's a good question. I was actually really curious about that.
Yeah.
I believe I haven't talked to anyone about that. I was wondering if English kind of became a universal thing, or at least basic words would get you through a race like that. We've talked a bit about it on the show before. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say there's some comments in the chat room right now regarding pacers. I believe pacers are not allowed.
I believe they're not allowed in any European race. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but you were not allowed pacers at UTMB.
Correct. No pacers are allowed.
I think that's more of
I think it's a U.S. thing. Yeah, North American thing, I believe.
Yeah.
Along with our switchbacks in the U.S., we like pacers. Unlike in Europe, they like to go straight up and have no pacers.
So there was actually another question that kind of briefly that went by as far as race tactics, and they asked, did Tim see any weird race tactics used by anyone shady race tactics, I think was the words that they used. But I'm more curious of did you see anything shady or switchbacks, if there are any, do people cut them, or is it just the fastest line to the top of a climb as opposed to stay on trail? Is that all allowed? I don't necessarily know the rules in that department. Yeah, so switchbacks definitely, there are some areas where you have several different sets of switchbacks that people kind of cut into the trail, and UTMB is pretty good about marking it. This is the best marked course I've ever run out of any ultra, even in the States. Even your local 50Ks that a race director puts in 1,000 flags. This, I swear, is marked even remarkably better. But that said, there are some areas where they have switchbacks, and it's clear where the trail is supposed to go, and there might even be kind of like a painted rock with some reflective kind of paint, or there's flags, but there's not something blocking you from taking the shortcut. And I both at CCC and UTMB, I did witness some people just kind of going straight up cutting the switchbacks, but nothing or going down switchbacks and cutting them, but nothing that I really felt was too offensive. It wasn't like, wow, he just cut off several minutes. It'd be like, you saved a couple of seconds, dude. Like, was it worth it? Right. But especially on some of the downhills, like, some people, they might take a little shortcut, but the route that they're taking is that much more treacherous. It's kind of like, I guess if you want to, and no one sees you, then you're okay. But integrity, that's kind of compromised a little bit. But yeah. And then in terms, sorry. No, go ahead. In terms of, I was gonna say, in terms of funny things, race strategies, I would say just like how hard people go out. Like, it's kind of like the Boston Marathon. Someone is gonna lead the elites and be that guy, that tries to hold on for the first 5K in front of all the East Africans and Meb, and then they'll die and disappear. It's like, is it worth it for your 15 seconds of fame? Like, maybe it is, but it's a long race. It kind of always boggles my mind, when people go out hard. But yeah, and we've talked to so many different types of ultra runners on this show, and the 131 episodes that came before this, which again don't compare to this episode. No. But we've talked to many who mention the short careers of certain individuals who go for glory or, have a couple big wins, but then don't have the longevity. So they just kind of disappear. You never see them again. So it's always really interesting to kind of hear different strategies and all that sort of thing. Tons of questions. What do we got, babe?
Yeah, we were just talking about shady race strategies. There's a question in the chat room from Cameron, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. Did they drug test the top 10 men and women?
Yeah, especially after last year's controversy, having to disqualify a top 5 finisher because of a poor drug test. Did they do that this year? Did you get tested?
Yeah, so I think beforehand, they test the first, or the top 100 ranked athletes get tested before the race. And I think that's based on whatever those rankings are that they compile for international races. Like, people are like 900 or 800 or 700 are their rankings. I don't know how they do that, but based on those, basically your seeded entry, you'll be tested. And last year they did blood tests. This year they did a cheek swab, which, as far as I know, cheek swab isn't going to test for much other than maybe like marijuana, THC, but I don't think you're going to pick up a lot of stuff. So it may be more of a just sort of a given the presence of, we are trying to keep a clean sport. They're giving the appearance of that, which, but after the race, they tested the top 4 guys. So they did take all 4 of the top 4 of us immediately from the finish line to a room where they tested us, which I'm glad, they're doing this. It's necessary to keep, advocating for a clean sport, and you have to, whether or not they're actually catching people, it gives the presence that this is happening. Hopefully that enough deters people, that fear of, if I do well, maybe I'll get tested. But the hardest part of it for us is that you finish a 22-hour race, you're kind of riding that high of the adrenaline, but then they remove you from the finish line once they make contact with you. You can't be separated from the doping control agent. And they immediately take you to this, room where they're going to test you. And last year at CCC, it actually took me almost 2 hours to provide a sample because I was so dehydrated. I drank a liter or 2 of water, a liter or 2 of Coke. Actually gave them partial sample, but I didn't hit the line. So they said, no, you got to go back in, you got to drink more, produce more. And so it's a hard thing to kind of go through, where you just kind of want to go maybe have a drink, or, like have some food, see your family, your friends, and you're removed from all that for, an hour or 2 hours. And it's a necessary thing, but it's kind of hard to navigate through. And the last thing, you want to do after that, and you start to, like, your body's kind of like shutting down, almost like you go through like fever, sweats, and chills, like, now that the body has finally realized that, hey, I can stop doing this ridiculous thing that I was doing for 22 hours. So they did test the top 4. I don't know what they did for the women afterwards. I wasn't there for that finish, but they did take the top 4.
And just to briefly stay on this topic, and we can move on from that, I'm really curious, coming from a road background, you have that experience from the road side of testing to now the trail side of testing. Is it something that you would like to see in the trail scene? Is it something you feel like is necessary? And how does it compare? Because, like you just said, after a 22-hour effort, that is considerably different than a 2-hour and 16-minute effort in a road marathon. The expenditure is totally different. How did that compare to your road background? And also, is it something that you feel like should be joining up with the trail community?
Yeah, so definitely, I think it's necessary. Although, I'd love to believe that there isn't, doping or cheating going on in our sport.
Of course, yeah.
You just brought up 5th place finisher last year, tested positive for EPO. That is a concern for me. And it happens at the master's level, even in road 5Ks and marathons in the States. It happens in cycling. It happens in, track and field. It happens in trail running. I don't want to be the one to break it to some of your viewers, but it does. And I think it's naive to think that they're
very opinionated on the topic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we strive for that, so that there are younger athletes that know that clean sport is possible, that you don't have to go down that route. And having that mentality of everyone's doing it is a dangerous culture to start, kind of spreading or being a part of. So I'm glad that they're doing it. I think that one thing we do need to aim for is, really being kind of consistent with how we do it, laying out expectations, because just in terms of, like, if someone were to have a positive doping test, or a test positive, and something in terms of how they handled the actual testing of it wasn't set in stone, that athlete or individual could have an out for saying, oh, things were misguided or handled. So I think, there's a lot of oversight and kind of administrative stuff that needs to happen, and it's newer to our sport. And I mean, even as we know in athletics and in marathoning, it's still a murky thing to kind of navigate through. The waters aren't clear, but I think we need to go that way. In terms of my road background, actually, it is different because I was never tested on the roads. This was
wow.
DCC last year was my first ever in competition test or out of competition test. Actually, I was never tested on the roads because although I had kind of a fast marathon, I was more sub elite if you compare me to the 210 marathoners in the country. Like making the trials and making the team at the trials, we're in two different categories. So I kind of fell into that subgroup of like, we acknowledge you, but we don't really care. We're not going to spend the time or the effort or the money to test you guys. So
got it. We can move on. We have tons, again, more questions from live viewers. So we're going to do a couple more live viewer questions, and then we have our Quickie question quiz, which we do with all of our new guests. But let's get to some of these live questions.
Sure. Question from Brian. Tim, watching the live stream with you coming into 120 kilometers, you looked so good physically and mentally. What's your mindset to keep you in shape for that distance?
What's my mindset for keeping me in shape for that distance?
Keeping you like physically and mentally top notch.
I think like just knowing that my training had gone well is a huge thing. And that's something I learned at marathon from my marathon background. If you put in the work and you can look back on specific workouts or blocks of running in your training prep, and if those went well, you should have the confidence to get through whatever race day is going to throw at you. And when you hit kind of these dark, low areas, I kind of remind myself of like, yeah, this sucks. Like, this is really hard. But one time you summited Mammoth Mountain 4 times in one day, like in the training run, like, you're ready for this, and your body's ready for it. And that's something I just kind of take this quiet confidence from the training, like reflecting on it, like knowing that you are ready to go. Now it's your time to execute it and hopefully make it happen.
We got a great last question here, and I'll dovetail onto it. Go ahead.
Sure. Question from Blake. Tim, what's your favorite section of the course?
And I will dovetail by saying, what was your favorite moment from this year's UTMB? Tim, let us know.
Oh, okay. Favorite section of the course, despite happening at the end, I think the final climb, Col de Monte, and then crossing over to Le Flagier, that section is my favorite. Like, it completely, hammered me this year because we're that deep into the race, and I'm being chased by Laney, I'm chasing down Zach, and like I'm in uncharted territory in so many ways. But it reminds me so much of home, like the Eastern Sierra, the JMT, the Pacific Crest Trail, some of these trails that I'm on regularly. It has a very similar resemblance to that. Everything from just kind of the layout of the rocks and how the trail kind of meanders through it, and high granite steps, and a mix of technical running and smooth single track. It really brings me home. And same thing happened at CCC last year. Like, getting to that point and still having a little life in my legs, I was able to enjoy it. So that was my favorite part of the course. Then what was the dovetail? I forgot.
Most memorable.
Yeah, most memorable moment of the race.
Oh, most memorable. Honestly, I think the most memorable, I mentioned this in my interview with Ultra Runner podcast, Eric, but when I was climbing out our Nuva, which is, I don't know, I should know the distances, but you're approaching like the 100K distance. You have this big climb up to the Grand Col Ferret, the high point of the course. And I'm climbing out of this fog that we'd been running in as day had broken. And you're looking back, and there's just this giant inversion filling the valley of Italy. And you have the peaks just towering over the inversion layer. You're climbing up towards the sunrise. And at the same time, I have this Italian boy who I found out, he's 14. I think I was saying he's like a little kid, like he's 8 years old or 10 years old, but he's 14. And he's climbing up behind me, and he's delivering a loaf of bread from the aid station up to the very top of Grand Col Ferret to the next aid station. Oh, wow. And like, I had this conversation with him. He spoke really good English, but I'm just like blown away that it's like 6 a.m. in Italy, and there's this, teenager hiking and running up behind me, this biggest climb of the course, to deliver a loaf of bread. and I'm like, and he speaks really good English, so we're talking, and it's just like, it's a different sport over here in Europe. Like these kids look up to, their European like idols or trail runners as idols. Like it's something they strive for, and like kind of getting that little glimpse was pretty neat. And like in the heat of the moment, and he's like, and then when I left, he was just like cheering me on and saying like, I hope you and Zach and David all have great races. And it's like, this is pretty incredible. Like it is unlike anything else.
That's pretty amazing.
Moment.
That is a great moment. That boy was me. And the bread got delivered fresh and warm. It was great. I'm 14. I definitely look 14. What do you think of, there's been different blogs and stuff like that written as in regards to the spectacle of the race, the size of the race, the media, that everything is becoming too much. Having now run it 2 years in a row, do you think that's the case? Or is it a really unique experience that you encourage others to enjoy?
It's an interesting question, and I thought about that a little bit, and I think I don't have a definitive answer, because I think my experience or some of the front of the packers experience will be vastly different than the people in the masses. Like I essentially spent, with the exception of some hours with Laney, I probably spent 15 hours, 16 hours by myself in the mountain. And you run into these towns where there's incredible crowd support, but then I'm back on the trail, single track by myself, and it's kind of what I love about running, that kind of solitude where you're out there. Now, if I was at the back of the pack or in the middle, maybe I'd be at a conga line, going up these peaks, and you're surrounded by dozens and dozens or hundreds of people, so maybe my experience would be different. But from what I've experienced, it was incredible because I get to blend my two favorite things: being out in the mountain, running, enjoying what it has to offer, and then the excitement of crowds and the energy of the start and the finish area. So I like that, but I do see people's points of it's being too commercialized. It's so grand, and it may be something that I think there's a place for that, obviously, because they sell out and they have they don't have a wait list, or I guess they do have a wait list, but they fill up 5 races between like 1,700 and 2,400 runners each. And that's pretty large. So there's a demand. And I think a race like this serves its place, but maybe, we don't need these everywhere in the world, but maybe we need to maintain UTMB and then also offer our, small races in the Pacific Northwest that we love, that are more grassroots and smaller. So I think it's something that I would recommend people, experience. Like I'm going to go back again. It's something that's unlike anything else, but maybe that being unlike anything else turns you off to it after experiencing it. I don't know.
Just so everyone knows, GRVR does not have a cap. We will allow anyone to register.
Do you have comp entries?
Sometimes. It depends on how many episodes of GR Live you've done. Usually the guests for episodes 1 through 131.
They get an
we'll
entry.
See. Yeah, they get an entry. I have to say, you did a fantastic job, Tim. Like, there's no comparison. 22 hours, 30 minutes, and 28 seconds, 3rd place overall. An incredible finish, Tim Tollefson, especially in your first 100. That's what's most
I feel
impressive.
like we need to stress that.
Yeah, because having run my first 100
from here, though.
Yes, I don't know that because I've only done one.
Early,
you peaked early.
Yeah.
But having only run 100, it is a painful experience. It is very difficult, and I can't imagine what it's like to run in the front of the pack amongst some of the best European runners and global runners, male and female, and to finish in 3rd place overall. It's incredible. I commend you, Kim.
I commend you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So congratulations, Tim Tollefson, 3rd overall at UTMB 2016.
Thank you.
Obviously, I think you already answered it. Are you going back?
I will go back. Whether or not I choose UTMB, I'm not sure, but I will choose one of those races.
And this question was asked in the chat room very early on, and I think we should do it in the main show here before moving to the post show. Lots of questions for the post show with Tim. But this main question is, what will it take to win this race? Having touched the podium, 3rd place, and knowing that front of the pack, what would it take to win?
I think personally, if I were to take a stab at that, it's going to be just trying to recreate kind of my buildup and not go crazy next year, where I think too often we have a little success and you think that was good, but more is going to be better. So I'm going to run more vert. I'm going to run more miles. I'm going to run further long runs. So I'm not going to strive for that, but be a little more aggressive in my race strategy. I think, that's going to be my big thing. And distance running, it's a cumulative, kind of build where it's season after season, year after year, where you actually get the advances, with the exception of performance enhancing drugs. And that's going to be what I aim for, is just be healthy and consistent this next year. And I guess, take more chances. Now I know kind of how my body does feel.
Yeah.
So I can be a little more aggressive. And I think I could be closer to that front pack early on. And for other Americans, I think it might take, having a bit more strategy going into it. I love the different styles we have, but I think learning from each experience, and truly being objective and kind of stepping back to think about what we can learn from those performances can help us all get better. So hopefully, all three of us Americans are going to pull something from that and maybe tweak our race strategy a little bit next year and get closer to the top of the podium.
Got it. Team Nike manager Pat Werhane is in the chat room, and he's throwing out, would you run more downhill in your training for a race like UTMB along with tons of vert?
Bro. I think my legs were pretty prepared for the downhills. I may throw in a little bit more vert. This season, I ran more than I ever have. So I was happy with that, and maybe I can tolerate a little bit more. But the downhill stuff is something I actually enjoy. I like to just shred my quads coming down, off the top of a mountain, and I'll probably incorporate more of that early on. Maybe not anything more like back-to-back days of it, but it'll be a staple in my training for sure.
Nice. We're going to move into the post show here. There's a couple things we do before we move into the post show. We've got lots of questions that are still coming in. Kim is still pulling them. We've got a list that we're going to rip through here with Tim in the post show. Before we get to that, with any new guest on the show, we have a series of the same questions that we ask all of our new guests called the Quickie Question Quiz. Tim, you let me know when you're ready. Basically how this goes, it's a series of very easy questions. You answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. You let me know when you're ready, and I'll just rip through them.
Ready.
What was your very first race?
Oh, cross country. Oh no, the presidential 1 mile race in 5th or 6th grade. I got a signed letter from Bill Clinton. No, George Bush.
It was George Bush. Yeah. Favorite running movie?
Favorite running movie. I guess I like. Damn it, I'm drawing a blank. I have some popping in my head, but I don't want to say them. I'll say it's not my favorite, but it's the one in the back of my head. McFarland on the way back from Europe. I must have been tired because I cried during it. And I don't know. I don't think it's that emotional of a movie, but I must have been, strung out from hours and hours of Disney gets me.
Oh yeah, Disney all the time. Patrick in the chat room is saying, without limits.
I knew he would say that.
Yeah. Trails or road?
I love the road. You're
one of the few guests.
I was going to say that might be one of the first.
One of the first of the guests on the show that has, but totally understandable. You have a huge history on the road. I get that.
Without a doubt, I love the mountain and the trail, but there's a special place. The road will never be taken out of me.
That's good. We need a little bit of variety. Favorite place to run currently?
The Eastern Sierra, anywhere in the backcountry.
Bucket
if you haven't been
race.
here, you need to check it out.
We are trust.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, we are in the car currently. This is the backdrop there's an Uber driver in the front. We will see you in about 30 minutes. What is a bucket list race?
Somewhere in Norway.
Ooh. That just intrigued me. I don't know if there's races in Norway. There are. Yes. We have lots of Norway viewers, and the Norwegians, if you have a race, let us know.
Also, like a little bit Norwegian.
Yeah, my wife is
50%
exactly
Norwegian.
Half.
What are you?
I'm 50% Norwegian.
So is Kim. You guys look so similar.
We do.
Yes.
I thought so.
What is a guilty pleasure TV show currently? Oh yeah,
Pretty
or
Little
Guilty
Liars.
Pleasure TV.
That's guilty.
Wow, that is a guilty pleasure TV show. Most people say like Breaking Bad
Yeah.
or something, but Pretty Little Liars. Tim
Yeah.
Tollefson.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Favorite pre-race meal?
Oatmeal and almond butter with coffee.
And your favorite post-race indulgence?
Pizza and ice cream. But it's not much of an indulgence because it's something Lindsay and I eat almost daily, it feels like. So
Thank you.
We're all going to get along just fine.
We're best friends. Totally best friends. Because I'm like, that's like a regular meal. So
Yeah.
it works out. And finally, people have been wanting to know about gear. And I know we'll get to this in the post show, but what are your current running kicks?
So the Wild Horse is pretty much all I use. The Wild Horse 3. And then the Lunar Tempo. I do workouts in the Lunar Tempo, a road flat. But those are my running kicks.
Wild Horse 3. I finished up Cascade Crest with the Wild Horse 3, and they're over there, and I can't grab them because my pole does not.
Pole?
Yeah, my pole does not grab them. Tim Tollefson, 3rd place at UTMB 2016. A huge congratulations to you, my friend. It was amazing to follow you. I feel like you're just getting started, and that's why I think this is a really amazing show. And finally, having the ability to get you on, I think, is important because the next few years are going to be incredible following Tim. Remind people, Tim, the live viewers and those who will watch in the archive or even listen on the podcast, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they bug you?
Instagram, Twitter, Strava. I don't do Facebook really. If I don't recognize your name and we've talked face to face, I won't accept you on Facebook. So no offense, but I can't do it.
You're going to have to create an athlete page or something. Yeah, because
over Lindsay's dead body.
Yeah. We're kind of in the same boat, though. We talk about that all the time. Like, how much is social media controlling our lives, and the ability to step away and kind of focus on things that are really important in life, like each other
and ice cream.
pizza and ice cream.
Other.
I mean, love. It was awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you.
131 episodes compared not to this one.
Yeah.
So it was great to finally have you on. If you are watching live, if you are a live viewer, or even an archive viewer who's watching this show, please stick around because we do a post show with our guests. And tonight we have tons of questions for Tim. Lots of questions. We're going to rip through them. So stick around. Once again, tonight is the last night. Only a couple hours left. I'm going to keep it open for about 4 hours to register for the Ginger Runner Virtual Run, which is a 120-minute activity that will occur on November 19th. You can choose what time of day you want to do it. You can choose where you do it, whether it's on trails or road or not on a car. I almost said in a car. It's a running thing, so don't do it in a car. But go to gingerrunnerstore.com. It's the last night to register for that. You can get a T-shirt, a Patagonia T-shirt, custom designed and everything. They're my favorite running shirts. You also get a Elevation Culture bottle opener customized with wood, and it's all for GRVR. It's specific for this race. There's an iron-on GRVR patch that you can put on your hydration pack, your T-shirt, wherever, and some surprises that will come. And there's also a bunch of trophies and awards that we'll be giving out, as well as gear. It's on. Check it out. I have been looking for an opportunity to bring this entire community together in one location. That's going to be really difficult. So on November 19th, we're going to do it on one day. Everybody can do an activity that is a combined effort, which is really exciting. So check it out. GRVR, the Ginger Runner Virtual Run at gingerrunnerstore.com. Stick around for the post show. It's going to be fun. Anything, Kim? Did I forget something? I feel like I'm forgetting something. No. Okay. More with Tim Tolson here in the post show. Stick around. Ginger Runner. I like that one of the first comments is, what about putting a treadmill in a car? Go for it. If the car is moving, I think that'll alter your time. And it'll be a waste of energy. Why would you bother running on a treadmill in a moving car? That would just be too much.
Yeah, I don't know.
I commend you for the effort in finding a car that can have a treadmill and allow you to run on it at the same time. That might deserve its own trophy. But so check it out if you have not already. Tim, tons of questions here for you. If you've got a couple minutes, we'll just rapid fire through them. Let me know if you've got to go at any point here, because I know it's late. It's definitely late because Mammoth is 6 hours ahead of us here in Los Angeles, right?
Is that why we haven't been there?
Is.
So there's a big time
change. Yeah. It's like an hour to Colorado difference, but to Mammoth Lakes is 6.
Right.
Because it's north.
All right.
Go ahead, rip through something.
Question from Chris. How big of a bag do you have to take in order to carry all the items that are required?
Ooh, yeah. So last year I was having a hard time putting all of my stuff in my Kiger pack, and because I was using a bladder, so I used I actually used the Solomon 5-set bag is what I used. But this year I went without the bladder, which freed up a lot of space. And then Nike actually custom made us some waterproof jackets and pants for the race that packed really small. And so I had no problem fitting everything in the Kiger pack, which was wonderful. So the Kiger pack is what all 4 of us athletes used, Nike athletes.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I saw all the pictures and everyone was wearing the Kiger pack and everything's adjusted differently. Everyone's wearing it a little bit different, which is pretty cool.
Another question from Chris about gear. Did you use poles?
Yes. Did you use poles?
I did. I pulled pretty hard up some of those mountains. And I just figured, the added weight would be worth it, because typically for me as a runner, my arms don't get tired. And if I could use something to help propel myself upwards and use less energy, I thought it would be beneficial. I did not use them at CCC, but I used them this year, and I'm glad. I'm happy with that decision.
Yeah, for sure. I was not going to use them for Cascade Crest, and I did, and I was.
You're lucky you did.
Oh my God! Yeah, very thankful that I did. Weirdly enough, you're like, oh, those. How can they help? They do. It's incredible. Go for it, but.
Question from Raul. Tim, what watch were you using? I saw on Strava that it died. Think you will upgrade?
So I picked up. I was using the Garmin 220 watch, which would be for training, just 8-hour, 10-hour life. So knowing that I wanted to have all the data for this, I picked up the Suunto Ambient Peak 3 something watch, which has a 30-hour battery life. Is that it?
Ambit 3.
Yeah, so Ambit 3. Peak. So I picked that up and it came in a few days before the race, and I thought I set it to the 30-hour setting, but I guess it was still on the 20-hour setting. Oh, no. So at 20 hours, it basically, went into power save mode and then just went to like a normal just time of day. Yeah. And so I'm sure it was user error, but it was frustrating because I went out of my way to get this watch for the race, and then it didn't pan out. Don't try new things on race day is a general rule of thumb that I definitely didn't abide by.
Yeah, with Cascade, I had to actually attach a USB charger to the watch during the section that you paced me for, right. And it charged the watch back to 100%. But you still had like a USB charger. I had it wrapped in my gingerrun head wrap.
Oh yeah.
No, I think I did.
I think you had it in your.
Yeah, I had a cord dangling out of my.
Delirious.
Oh yeah, I don't remember that part.
I think it was in your.
Yeah, I had hyperthermia, so I don't remember anything. Yeah. Okay, what's next?
A question from Lori Hall. Does your knowledge as a PT help you avoid injury or recover faster?
Great question.
I would say it should help me avoid injury, but as anyone in the profession will tell you, you're typically your own worst patient, or you don't take your own advice. But recover faster, I would say, yeah. In terms of if I'm dealing with something, like I'm not always the best about prehabbing or avoiding it. My wife Lindsay's very good about being diligent with exercises. I'm not. All of the core stuff. But afterwards, if something comes up, I'd say without a doubt that knowledge is invaluable.
Yeah, are you able to self-assess? So do you find yourself self-assessing more than you should? And if you have something pop up, you go, okay, I know I need to take 3 days off of running or whatever.
Yeah, I do a lot of self-assessment, kind of gauge like, I have this little kind of like stoplight I'll use, like green light, yellow light, red light, where in the severity of these little, kind of nagging injuries do they fall? Because if I took a day off every day something hurt, I probably would never train. Like the reality of our sport, like I'm constantly dealing with something. But I also am fortunate that I have great coworkers like at our sports clinic that they can help diagnose me. So like if I'm dealing with something, I'll grab one of my my coworkers, Dre or Sarah, and they'll kind of assess or they'll work on me, which is wonderful. So I have kind of not 24/7, but I have access to them every day if I need it, which is wonderful.
That's actually great to hear an elite say that on almost every day you're dealing with something, and whether or not like you said, the red, green, or the green, yellow, red system, whether or not it is a severe injury. But to hear that an elite has issues almost all the time, whether it's a green, yellow, or red, that's awesome. Not that you might have something, but just like for us regular folk, we're not the only ones that deal with injuries.
I think I've asked you, do you kind of hurt a little bit every day?
Every morning you wake up and go, my legs hurt.
Me?
Do yours hurt? You know, after a run, I'm like, sure.
You should see me try and put socks on in the morning. That's the hardest part of my day.
We need to hear more of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you're not the only one, Tim. I know this for a fact. But every time I talk to elites on this show about,
there are a lot of misconceptions on what happens at the elite level.
I believe it.
Elite level.
Mm-hmm.
And and I believe there's probably also this. They want the perception to be that they are healthy and that they're invincible. I get it. It's a marketing thing. It's also, sponsors and all that. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to be honest and just go, you know what, we're dealing with something all the time. Thank you. I think helpful. It's helpful because regular runners deal with something all the time.
Yeah.
And even me, I'm dealing with a knee thing right now, and having that out there was really difficult for me to say.
Want me to touch it? Virtually?
This show just changed. Tim just offered to touch my knee. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to go to Mammoth real quick. Love you.
We're in the car.
We're in the car. We're on our way, man. Yeah, you can.
We're both married.
We're both married.
Yeah,
it's
you
totally
guys can
fine.
touch each other's knees all you want.
Anyway, I just think it's really great to hear.
It's refreshing.
It's refreshing. Yeah. So yes, please keep saying that because we need to hear that. Mid-packers, back of the packers, regular folk. We got tons of questions. Keep going.
Your beer smells really good.
It is amazing. This beer is amazing, Tim.
It smells good. Yeah.
Can you tell? Can you tell it's good?
People in the chat room are saying that the beer is kicking in with you.
Yeah, because I'm talking a lot. I talk a lot and I talk fast. That's what happens when I drink too much.
All right, back to the question.
Yeah.
Question from Karen. Tim, are you interested in competing in Hard Rock 100? And there was also another question in the chat room referencing whether or not you are interested in running Western states as well.
So the interest in Hard Rock is there. The interest in Western is not at this moment of my career, which might shock people given that I come from the roads and Western is a runner's race, or they say that, whoever they are, that it's a more runnable course, which it is if you look at the profile. But for me, I'm drawn more towards, if I'm going to spend a day doing something, I want to be in the mountains doing it. And Western, although has a great start, you then drop down more into Oak Tree and Scrub Oak. And I've run almost all of the trail, and I love it for what it offers. But for what I'm looking for at this point of my career, it doesn't fulfill that. Mixed with heat. I hate hot weather. And so I know, just baking in the canyons is not going to be something I'll enjoy. I don't know if anyone enjoys it, but I paced Laney the last 2 years at Western, and I love everything that the race offers and, the prestige and its history. But for me right now, I'm not interested in doing it.
That's interesting. You brought up heat because I know UTMB suffered from a heat wave this year. Mm-hmm. Did that influence your run at all?
It did, but I just, what can you do? Everyone's dealing with it. And I had hoped for cool weather, the entire day, or even a storm. I would have preferred a storm. But when you're in the heat of the moment, literally, you just forge ahead and focus on nutrition. Consume as much as you can, and don't wallow in the fact that it's hot. But
North Face 50 miler was your first 50 miler. There's a question here asking if you'll be back this year. Is that something that's on your calendar?
North Face 50 is one I definitely want another crack at. I feel like I have a lot of unfinished business on that course, but this year I don't think I'm going to be back there. I'm probably gonna, if I do another ultra this year, it'll probably be a 50K. I'm going to kind of respect the recovery and not ask too much of my body at this point.
Also refreshing to hear.
Yes. Real smart. I think that's only going to benefit you in 2017 because you hear too many stories of people just going too hard too soon after really hard efforts.
And I was going to recommend.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes. Yes. Valuable advice from Tim.
Write that down.
Everyone watching live, write it down because I'm going to. Yeah, I think it's good.
I was going to say I would recommend maybe checking out Cascade Crest 100 on a year that you're not going to be traveling to UTMB. I think it happens on the same weekend every year. It
happens on the same weekend every year, which is unfortunate because it is an incredible Northwest mountain race.
Yeah. I'll
So
keep that
if
in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, keep it in mind. And also people in the chat room are like, you should run Squamish.
Yes.
Yes, if you can
Yeah.
work that into the schedule or any Vancouver trail race.
Yeah,
You know,
any
I
of
don't know if
Gary's
you know Gary,
races.
but yeah, it's worth it. Totally worth it. Okay, a couple more.
Question from Chuck. Tim, any interest in going back to street road running now that you've seen the light? I know you mentioned that you really love road running. Is it something that you would, are you going to continue to compete?
Hi, I'm Tim Tollefson, and I'm a recovering road whore. I definitely will. I have plans of doing a road marathon, but I'm going to wait till the Olympic trials cycle opens because I'd like to try and qualify for the Olympic trials again. And knowing that that is a goal, I'm going to have to, once it opens, I'll choose a race that hopefully gives me an opportunity, but I'm going to have to probably dedicate a good 4 to 6 months specifically for December. I kind of a transition back from CCC into a road marathon, and it didn't go that well. I just underestimated like how much I needed to kind of switch gears in my training. So I'll do a proper build up, but it probably won't be for another 18 months.
Got it.
Question from Jeff. Dream FKT record?
Here in the Sierra, there. What was that?
John Muir.
Oh, you know, the through hikes like that, maybe at some point, but you know, that trail is meant to be enjoyed, and I think doing it in 6 or 7 days, or you know, maybe 5 or 6 days would be better than just like gutting yourself in a sleep deprived state. You know, I know some people that have tried it, and it's kind of miserable if you're really going after those FKTs. And so I'd rather do like FKTs on like mountain pushes, like Mount Whitney, Shasta, Half Dome, some of those. And I think that's dream slate right now.
Nice. That'd be awesome. Doing something like that. I know there's lots of really stout FKTs in Yosemite. That'd be great. Keep us posted if you end up partaking in any of those sorts of things, because some really good movies that can come out of that. Just like, man, that'd be awesome.
You got it.
A half dome FKT would be freaking sick. One last question.
Question from Mika. Do you like to train by yourself in solitude, or do you like training with a partner or in a group?
I like training in groups. However, just the nature of kind of our location and Lindsay and my schedule working full time, we train basically solo, and so I've grown to love that as well. And it's nice just listening completely to how my body feels on the day. You know, if I feel great, maybe I push harder. If I don't feel good, I'm not in a pissing match with, you know, my training partner next to me, where I'm going too hard for my true recovery or whatever I need out of that day. But Lindsay and I do a fair amount of running together, which I really enjoy. So, you know, I'd say we're great training partners. And if there were other people, you know, trail runners in town, it'd be nice on occasion or regularly to meet up with them. But I don't mind solo running at all.
Do you and Lindsay have similar paces, or does that change workout to workout?
It changes workout to workout, and also depending on like if I'm gearing up for a mountain race or if she's gearing up for a flatter 50K or a road marathon. Like, so it all those variables play into it, but they're typically on like recovery days, we can run together. And it's a good time just to be out there, you know, sharing it with like one another.
Style.
I just posted this, was it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday, but I couldn't agree more. This was unsolicited advice that I put out there to run with your significant other, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, in a training run or even a race. We've done 2 races together, and we've done countless training runs together, and it's difficult sometimes, but you learn so much about the other person, and it's some of the most rewarding running I've ever done, especially the most recent Squamish. Was it 23 or 25K? 23K. That's right, because the Buckingham is 25K, but it was awesome. It was a hard day for you, and I had my knee issue, and we were both just like not having a great day, but it was awesome to be able to run with your partner. So yeah, I'm with Tim on this one. Great advice, running with your significant. I have one last question, Tim. What is next? Any races on the calendar, or are you taking some good recovery?
I'm taking good recovery, but I am going to be doing a full cross-country season this fall. So we're talking 8K, 10K, 12K, true cross country races in Northern California, which I'm excited about. Like, I think it's important, not to become, I don't want to become a one trick pony where it's like, all I can do are these mountain hundreds. I want to keep developing my speed and, running mechanics in other areas. And I want to be versatile. And in cross country also is just enjoyable. Like, anyone that has run cross country will tell you there is that's one of the best distances, like all out, gutting yourself from the gun to the tape. And true racing. You learn how to race in cross country. There's no time to, figure out like, oh, maybe a couple hours from now I'll start feeling better. It's like, no, you have 15 to 30 minutes to be on. And I think there's a lot to be said to racing cross country.
Yeah, we've heard this from other people too. And those efforts are difficult. As someone who's tried to improve my 5K time from bad to less bad, it's hard. It's hard, man.
Yeah.
There's major respect for cross country and track kids. Tim, thank you so much for taking the time out tonight. Again, huge congratulations at UTMB, third place with a 22-hour, 30-minute, 28-second finish, which is just freaking bonkers. Bonkers.
Thank you.
We will be making our trip. Well, we're in the car right now, but we'll see you in Mammoth Lake here in just a couple of minutes.
In the morning.
I'll have another double nut brown for you.
Oh, great. Yeah, because I need another one right now, obviously. We're what, 5 minutes? Okay, we're 5 minutes away from you. Those who are still watching live, thank you so much for continuing to watch Ginger Runner Live tonight. We'll see you guys next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, back to the regular time. It's always great to do these shows, and it's great to have you guys watching live. I'm just going to close my eyes and go to bed now. If you want to continue to follow Tim or have any additional questions for him, you can on Twitter, it's at Tim Tollefson. And on Instagram, is it the same on Instagram, Tim?
Yes. Yep.
So do it. Go follow him. And he's got great photos too. Mammoth Lakes is a beautiful part of the United States. So definitely worth checking out. Thank you very much for tuning in live tonight, guys. Any last words?
Yeah, thank you.
That's it. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Finally, 132 episodes later, we got you on.
I'll see you for 133.
We'll see. Yep. We'll see you on the next one too. That's it, guys. We'll see you guys next Monday. Bye.